Welcome back to Algebra 1. We'll continue solving some problems with parentheses in order of operations. So we're going to use the same variables. T is equal to 6, x is equal to 3, y is equal to 4, and z is equal to 5. And we'll use that for the remainder of the problems. And we'll get a little bit more complicated, but basically we'll be using the same rules over and over again. So what if we had the problem 5 times 3y minus 4x? And that was inside parentheses. So first we'll just substitute in 3 times y, where y is given as 4. So that would be 4. And then we'll have minus 4 times x, which is given by 3. Now, the first thing we do is to look for parentheses, and we see we have a set of parentheses. Now, inside this parentheses, we have multiplication, which is a higher priority than the subtraction. So that's how we're going to handle it. It'll be 5 times. 3 times 4 is 12. The minus will come much later. And then 4 times 3 is also 12. Now, notice what we have here inside the parentheses. 12 minus 12 is 0. And I can mentally drop this parentheses now that I've done it. 5 times 0 is 0. So all of that work just to give us an answer of 0. All right. The next problem is going to be x times y times z minus 4z. How do we handle that? So we just plug things in. X is 3, y is 4, z is 5, minus 4 times z, which is 5. So again, I look for parentheses. I don't have any. I have multiplication happening here, and I have subtraction there. I know that multiplication always happens before the subtraction, and I know that when I multiply, when I have more than one thing multiplied, I just go left to right. So 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 5 is 60. So that first term there is going to be 60. The minus sign is going to come into play there, and then the 5 times 4 is 20. And now the only thing left is subtraction, so 60 minus 20 is 40. And that's the final answer. Okay, 40. All right, now we're going to get into a little more challenging looking problem. It still is not hard, but I need to show you how to do one of these guys. Now I'm going to open what we call a bracket. I'll explain why in just a second. X plus 4. I'll open a parentheses. Y plus z. And then I'll close the parentheses and close this bracket off like that. Now, we've been talking about do parentheses first over and over again. Well, in algebra, we call this parentheses, these lines obviously. These square things, we call them brackets, but they function and behave exactly like parentheses. In fact, I don't have to use these brackets. I could just put parentheses right here and a curved parentheses right here. It would be just fine. It's just that when you have multiple sets of parentheses, it can kind of get confusing which one goes with what. But when I use a different symbol, I know these go together and I know these go together. So a lot of times you'll use brackets when you have multiple sets of things. So for the order of operations, well actually before we do the order of operations, let's just substitute what we have in. 2 bracket x is 3 plus the 4, and then y is 4 plus z, which is 5. So I can close it all up and now we can discuss how to actually solve it. So we need to look for parentheses. We have a set of parentheses here and we have a set right here. We always go inner to outer, if you remember that in the order of operations. So we work on the innermost set of parentheses first before we ever touch any of this other stuff inside the outer set of parentheses. So 4 plus 5 is just simply 9. So what we will have is 2 bracket 3 plus 4. All this stays the same. 4 plus 5 is 9. So we just close it up. That's the first thing we do because it's the highest priority. Now we look and say, well, we've essentially taken care of what we have here, what we've done there, making the 9. Now we have this other parentheses to deal with. So we have multiplication and we have addition. Multiplication always comes first. So what we will have over here is 2 bracket 3 plus, what's 9 times 4? That's going to be 36. Now inside of here we have 2 bracket, what's 3 plus 36? That's 39. And then finally, what is 2 times 39? That's going to be 78. So you see, this problem looks really, really difficult when you start over here and say, wow, this is really crazy. But all you do is do it one step at a time. Put everything in here and formulate your plan. Okay, I'm going to do the inner parentheses first. All right, now I've got this outer parentheses, but I know multiplication comes first, so I do that. Then I do the addition. Now I've taken care of all the parentheses. Now I can do the multiplication. And then you're done. We'll do one more in a similar fashion so you can kind of see how a little more of a complicated problem would work. What if we had 5y plus 6z, we'll close the parentheses here, minus 3 times t, close the bracket, divide by y. So again, we have to substitute in all of our variables before we do anything else. So we'll open the bracket, open the parentheses, 5 times y, which is 4, plus 6 times z, which is 5, minus 3 times t, which is 6, close the bracket, divide by y, which is 4. So again, it looks complicated, but you just have to break it apart. We first look for parentheses. Okay, I have a set of parentheses here, and I have a much larger set here. I always go inner to outer. So all I'm going to do is zoom in and focus on this. Now here, I have multiplication happening and addition happening. The multiplication is always going to come first from the order of operations. So what I'm going to have down below is bracket. Inside of here, 5 times 4 is 20. The plus comes much later. 6 times 5 is 30. I can do both of those multiplications. The rest of the problem, I'm going to just leave it alone for now, just to make it absolutely clear what we're doing. All right? So I'm still working on this innermost set of parentheses, 20 plus 30. I'm still working in here. 20 plus 30 I can now do and say that that's 50. All right, minus 3 times 6, close, divide by 4. All right, now what do? We look here and we say, well, okay, I've done that parentheses, it's finished. I can mentally kind of drop it. Now I have the outer parentheses, so I have subtraction happening, and I also have multiplication happening. So the multiplication happens first. So let me keep that here. It'll be 50. I can drop those parentheses now. The innermost parenthesis, I can drop it around the 50. 3 times 6 is 18. And I have the divide by 4 right there. Okay, so now I look at it, it's a much simpler problem now. I have a bracket or a parentheses here that has to always come before this division. So I'm going to do that first. What is 50 minus 18? 50 minus 18, I'll open that bracket up, it's 32. And then you have divide by 4. Now everything's basically done. I can mentally drop this bracket because I've done the math. The only thing left is the division. 32 divided by 4 is 8. And that is the final answer. So that is how you handle a more complicated problem. Notice it took a lot of steps here. A lot of students start throwing the numbers in and start just doing everything at once. They try to do this first and then do that, and then they just try to be fancy and they just try to get it all done in as few steps as possible. But you really should not do that. You really need to write everything down and go one line after line. You know, first we do these multiplications, we get this, then we do the addition to get this, then we do the subtraction to get this. Or I should say, we do the multiplication to get this, then we do the subtraction to get this, and then we do the division. And that's how you should tackle your problems, especially in the beginning. When you get more comfortable with it, of course, you may combine, I shouldn't say skip steps, combine steps a little bit to make it faster. But for now, this is exactly how I'd recommend you do it. Same with this problem, where we wrote everything out one step at a time. So that is the bottom line on how we handle parentheses in order of operations. Follow me on to the next lesson. We'll continue learning algebra step by step.